I now call this meeting of Executive Council to order. As the chair of the Executive Council, I have determined that this is impractical to hold the meeting in person due to the ongoing pandemic and health crisis declared under Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes. Under this ruling, this meeting will be held virtually and all votes will be taken with a roll call vote.
Governor, if I may.
Yes, Lieutenant Governor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Governor. I wanted to just note for folks who may be watching that as the Executive Council, we get all of the materials weeks in advance and are also briefed on these materials. So just wanted to add that to just the transparency so that folks know that that's what's happening behind the scenes here.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you to the staff that puts in an awful lot of time, and then the teams on each of these council that take time to brief us on questions that arise. With that, I would now call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the 8 emergency executive council meetings held since November 12, 2020, and the regularly scheduled executive council meeting that was held on December 2nd, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I now call for a roll call vote of each member of the council to state their vote. Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries and the minutes are approved. At this time, I'd like to recognize Minnesota Management and Budget Assistant Commissioner Jennifer Hasmer to present a request to approve collateral for state funds. Assistant Commissioner Hasmer, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, and good morning, Governor and members of the Executive Council. For the record, I'm Jennifer Hasmer, Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. My one item on the agenda today is a request for the approval of new collateral used to secure state funds on deposit at 5 of the state's banks. Executive Council approval is required by Minnesota statute section 9.031, subdivisions 2 and 3. The collateral listed on the memo represents the replacement of previously approved collateral that is maturing. I'm requesting your approval of this agenda item and will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. I would note that approval of collateral is something that happens at every regularly scheduled Executive Council meeting. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of each member. Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. At this time, I'd like to recognize DNR Lands and Minerals Division Director Joe Henderson to present a request for approval to enter into a lease exceeding a 21-year term for continued operation of the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Togo. Lands and Minerals Director Henderson, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Executive Council. Again, for the record, I am Joe Henderson, Director of Lands and Minerals Division at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Today, the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Administration, Department of Corrections, and Minnesota Management and Budget are recommending that the State Executive Council approve entry into a lease exceeding 21 years, together with amendments and extensions not to exceed 42.5 years. The lease would be issued from the DNR to the Department of Administration, acting for the benefit of the Department of Corrections for continued operation of the Togo Correctional Facility. The Togo Correctional Facility, for those of you that may not know, is located east of Big Fork and north of Hibbing in Itasca County. The Togo facility is currently operated under an existing lease from the DNR with a term set to expire June 30th of 2021. Continued operation of the Togo facility on DNR administered land will require a new lease beginning July 1st, 2021. For your knowledge, the DNR administered land is a combination of school trust land as well as acquired land administered by DNR Forestry. The Department of Correction intends to use state bond proceeds to finance projects at the Togo site. Specifically, in 2020, the Department of Corrections received a $2.6 million bond fund appropriation to design, construct, and equip a new sewer system at the Togo facility. Due to the state bonding requirements and from guidance from MMB, the term of the lease must be for at least 125% of the useful life of the bond finance projects, which in this case is primarily the septic system. The lease term is anticipated to therefore need to be 37 and a half years to meet the bonding requirement. The term of 42 and a half years that we're asking for is because the 37 and a half years of useful life does not start until the last of the bond funds have been spent, and engineering, design, and construction and other improvements will take time to put in place and allocate all the bond funds to. So Minnesota statute section 89.17A requires state executive council approval for the DNR to issue this lease for a period exceeding 21 years. In conclusion, it's the opinion of the DNR, the Department of Administration, Department of Corrections, and Minnesota Management and Budget that the lease exceeding 21 years is necessary and prudent to allow for the continued operation of the Togo Correctional Facility while complying with state bond proceed requirements. We recommend that you allow approval to enter into this lease. I will stand for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Director Henderson, and thank you for that update. I would note, State Auditor Blaha, that Mr. Henderson spent extensive time with me to make sure that I understood all of the pieces of this, because I think as an auditor, these things are critically important. And while there's some minutia around this, it is all done with protection of taxpayer money and the foresight for what a facility will use for now and into the future. So this is the right thing to do to keep the facility functioning, to keep it operational for its current or any future uses where it may be used. And at that, I would open it up for any question or comments from the council. Hearing none, I would call a motion to approve the request for the lease.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Are there any final discussion points before I call for a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Executive Council.
So moved.
Roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. This meeting of the Executive Council is adjourned, and we will say goodbye to the Lieutenant Governor at this point.
Have a good day, everybody.
I would now call the meeting of the State Board of Investment to order. As chair of the State Board of Investments, I have determined that an in-person meeting was not practical due to the current health pandemic and peacetime emergency declared under Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes, as is permitted under the open meeting law, that we can hold this meeting of the State Board of Investment virtually, and all votes are counted with a roll call vote. Our first order of business is to call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 meeting of the SBI.
So moved.
I would now call roll call vote of each member. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries, and the minutes from the December 2nd, 2020 meeting are approved. I would now like to recognize Executive Director Perry to report on 1, the SBI performance summary, and 2, the Executive Director's administrative report. Executive Director Perry, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Governor and members. If I could have you turn to tab A of our booklet, I'll go over the performance summary. On page 2, you'll note that as of the end of calendar year 2020, that we were responsible for in excess of $114 billion, and the combined funds accounted for $82.1 billion of that total. If you turn the page for our combined fund long-term objectives, You'll note that we exceeded the first objective, which is to exceed the composite index over a 10-year period, and we had a return that was 30 basis points above that for the 10-year period. Our second objective of providing a real return, you'll note that over the 20-year period that we provided a real return of 5.3%. If you look on the next page, page 4, you'll see that during the quarter ending December 31st, that we added about a little more than $7 billion to the fund. Most of that came from investment returns, the total approaching $8 billion, and we had net contributions going out of the fund of $600 million. At the bottom of that page, you'll notice that for all reporting periods that we exceeded our composite index. Of particular note, and I'd like to have you look at our fiscal year-to-date return as of December 31st, where we had a return of 17.6%. For the last 12 months, 14.7%. If you turn the page, you'll see on page 5 that our asset mix and is in line with our targets after the changes that we made to the combined funds during the latter half of the year. You'll see on the next page that our public equity performance has contributed significantly to the fiscal year return and last year's return. Most of that's come from domestic equities, but we also had a pretty robust year with our international equities. If you turn the page for fixed income, you'll notice that fiscal year to date, reflecting the fact that interest rates are as low as they are, the entire fixed income portfolio returned a little less than a percentage point, but for the last 12 months, 11.2. I would expect over the coming quarters that these returns will be more reflective of what we've had for the fiscal year to date. If you turn to the next page, you'll see that private markets fiscal year to date had a return of 15.3%, somewhat above our returns for the last last 3 years. If you turn the page, you'll see our strategic allocation category framework. Everything is pretty much in line, but we will be changing this to reflect the changes that we've made in the past couple of quarters to the combined funds, and we'll be bringing that to you probably at the next meeting. You'll note on with our volatility equivalent benchmark that for all time periods that we've added value to the benchmark, and that our portfolio is pretty much reflective on a risk basis of 60-40 stock bond weight. If you turn the page, you'll see the asset mix for TUCs, but for performance, I'd have you look at page 12, and this is a comparison of our combined funds to not only public plans, but corporate plans, endowments, and foundations. And you'll note that for most time periods, we are in the first quartile of performance. But I'll also have you turn to page 20 and look at a comparison of the combined funds to public fund plans in excess of $50 billion, which is more reflective of our peer group. And you'll notice that for most reporting periods that the combined funds have been in the top decile of performance. If you turn to tab B to my administrative report, we've included our budget and travel. Budget still remains below the fiscal, our fiscal year amount, and we haven't had any travel as could be expected. Item number 2, if you look on attachment B, we've received a clean opinion from the legislative auditor, and there were no adverse findings this year for the audit, which we're very happy about. And everyone should have received a copy of the fiscal 20 annual report. Next on tab C is our private markets investment report, and I'll turn the first half of the report over to our chair of the Investment Advisory Council, Gary Martin, to present our recommendation for new private market commitments, which would be under tab E of our report.
Director Perry, before Mr. Martin starts, I'd just like to note I think the Executive Council knows as we dig into this, but the performance of our funds and the director is incredibly humble, and his team is. I think it should be noted on comparable funds where we compare. Am I correct, Mr. Director, that on funds over 20 billion, that SBI ranks in the top 1% over the last 10, 30 years?
For those over 20 billion, for the last 20 years, yes. For the last 10 years, yes, we rank in the first percentile.
I just want to note to folks listening, and again, when people deal with these numbers all the time, but when they explain it to me, funds of this size who are doing the exact same job to try and get return for their stakeholders, in this case, our state pensions and the health of our state, they do better than 99% of the other fund professionals. So, Director Perry, as I said, you are humble, you do your work, you provide 1 year, 10 years, and 30 years we can go back. I do think it should be noted, there's not been a lot of good news during the last year of the pandemic. This report is certainly one of those. So I want to thank you and your team. And Auditor Blaha, you are recognized.
Thank you. And what's I think equally impressive is that despite these great returns, it would be really tempting to rest on your laurels at this point. But the fact that we are still taking risk mitigation measures, the risk mitigation measures we put in over the last year have really kept us diversified. So if things change, and we always know they will, but I have to say it's particularly impressive that in the face of these very good returns, you still are planning for when things might be different. So again, well done. It's great to see the great numbers. It's also great to see that if things change, we have options as well.
Well stated. Mr. Secretary, you are recognized. Mr. Secretary, I think we have you on mute.
You think after all these months, Governor, I would get that straight. Thank you for the gentle correction. Mr. Perry, I just wanted to say for the record what others have, and to put a finer point on it, you know, anyone can have a hot quarter, and that's great, and we welcome that. But you've done more than that. You've shown sustained high levels of return, and I note too, and this came up in our pre-meeting briefing and our meeting with the consultants as well. You have focused on the long term by, for example, being very steady about getting us to our allocation targets. I noticed that we're almost where you said we should be, and we all agreed we should be on public equities. I think it was 52%. We're headed towards 50. Someone who was particularly greedy about having a hot quarter would say, well, wait, public equities is where so much of the growth is. You know, why are we divesting from that? But you and your team are determined to stick to the plan that over the years you have developed and we have agreed to. So I just want to thank you on the record for that as well. You've been very disciplined about it, is what I'm trying to say, which is not just going for the bright, shiny, hot quarter, but for longer term returns. Thank you.
Auditor, are your hand still up? Would you like?
As speaking of doing this for a long time and not figuring that out, No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Director Perry, again, these are well earned, and I think it needs to be said, especially in a public meeting where folks need to know. This is foundational to the fiscal health of the state of Minnesota. We're talking well over $100 billion, and the long-term security of our state workers and their future and their pensions and the state's investments, and having the stewardship of you and your team is greatly appreciated. So I will turn it to you, Director Perry, to introduce Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Governor, members, for the kind words, but it's basically this is the work of my team, which I think has been exemplary, and also the guidance that we get from our Investment Advisory Council. So if we turn to tab E, Chair Martin will present our recommendations for new private market commitments.
Mr. Martin, we're not able to hear you if you are on. Director Perry, do we have someone who can present for Mr. Martin on those?
In his absence, I guess I'll pinch hit. Okay, if you turn to tab E, we have 7 existing managers that we're asking to for approval to re-up in several of their funds. One private credit fund from Brookfield, the Brookfield Real Estate Finance 6 fund for $200 million. We have 5 private equity funds that we are seeking approval. Adam Street's Global Secondaries, this is their 7th fund for $300 million. Hellman and Friedman's Capital Partners Fund 10, which we're asking for approval up to $300 million. Colbert, Kravis, and Roberts America's Fund 13, which we're asking for $300 million. The Public Pension Corporation Management Group, we're asking for the ability to add an additional $200 million to their fund. They're a little bit different than the others in that their fund is not a series, but a continuation of and a longer term fund. We're asking for approval to invest up to $150 million in Thomas H. Lee's Fund 9, and one real estate fund, Lubert Adler's Recovery and Capital Enhancement Fund, $400 million. These funds have been reviewed with the Investment Advisory Council, and we'd like to have approval by the board.
Thank you, Director. I would, is there any discussion on the proposed recommendations from the IAC? I would now call for a motion to approve the IAC's recommendation for private market commitments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
And now call roll call vote. Auditor Baha?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The recommendations are approved. If we have Mr. Martin on join now, we will have a discussion around private market investment consultants. Mr. Martin, are you able to join?
Are you able to hear me now?
I sure am.
Okay, great.
The director
I'm so sorry
covered
about
for
the
you on
technical difficulties.
All right, please go ahead on the investment consultant motion.
Okay, Mansco, were you going to cover that, or?
I presented the 7 that we're asking for. We're now at the motion phase.
Okay, great. So this is with regard to the investment consultant, is that correct?
No, this is with regards.
Yeah, that is correct.
Oh, for the consultant?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to do it, but I'm more than happy to turn it over to you, to Mr. Martin.
I'll let you lead and I'll certainly chime in, and sorry for the technical difficulty.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Director Perry.
Okay. So 3 years ago, with encouragement by the Investment Advisory Council, it sought approval from the board to seek to hire our first private markets consultant to demonstrate, how diligent we are in looking at these things. We're coming back 3 years later with a request to hire such a consultant. We issued an RFP last April, received responses from 10 candidates, most of whom we thought were very good, but we were able to whittle it down to 3 finalists. We're looking to use the consultant for a variety of additional things. They're more of an extension of staff than our general consultants are. It will allow us greater bandwidth than my staff of 4 people in that area can do. There'll be additional post-investment monitoring. One thing that we're excited about being able to call upon someone to help us with would be operational due diligence, also to assist us in ESG review and diligence with the managers, some benchmarking, and a variety of other operational tasks. I am personally looking forward to having someone who will help us to use their extended breadth in the area, both with markets and other managers, to assist us in providing additional strategy within the area. So what we're asking the board to approve, and it has been endorsed by the Investment Advisory Council, is to approve our recommendation that staff hire Allborn Partners as the state's first private markets consultant.
Thank you, Director. At this time, are there any questions or discussions for Director Perry or Mr. Martin? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve the IAC's recommendation for a private market consultant.
So moved.
And I'll call roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The recommendation for the consultant is approved. And at this time, I would recognize the Executive Director Perry for as much time as he may consume to present the rest of the program updates.
Thank you, Governor and members. Our next series of reports in the book deal with public markets. I won't go over in any detail there, but would note under tab H, we have presented a review of recent changes to the combined funds. This will detail the moves that we made in response to the resolution concerning management of the combined funds, asset allocation, and liquidity that the board passed at its May meeting. We're pretty pleased that we finished all but the hiring of one manager that we had outlined at the time. We expect that once we finish some further legal review and fee negotiation, that we will be bringing it to the IC and the board hopefully at the next meeting. You'll also see under tab I, public markets program report, which will give you a view of what actually happened in the portfolio in the last quarter, and some organizational updates and a listing of manager meetings that staff had with our public markets managers. If you turn to tab J, we do have two action items for our participant-directed investment and non-retirement programs. First, we're asking the board to approve a recommendation by staff and endorsed by the IC that we add the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund to the Minnesota Deferred Compensation Plan. This will just provide an additional option looking over the broad U.S. stock market for participants in the deferred comp plan. Currently, they're able to get there by the use of three funds: large caps, mid cap, and small cap. This will allow them one vehicle to which participants will have to monitor in their deferred comp plan. And we'd like to have approval of that.
This move requires a vote on this recommendation. So I would ask, are there any discussions around adding the Vanguard total stock to this plan? Hearing none, I would call for a motion for the recommendation to add Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund to the Minnesota Deferred Compensation Plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The recommendation is approved. Director Kelly, please proceed with recommendations on the Minnesota 529 College Savings Plan.
Yes, Governor, members, we're also recommending that we add the TIA-CREF Social Choice Equity Fund to the menu of options that are available to those who participate in the 529 College Savings Plan. Believe that this choice was actually recommended by TIA-CREF, that we and others who use their menu of choices for 529 college review, and after our review we agreed with them that this would be a good choice for people to have available to them, and so we're asking your approval.
At this time, I'd ask, is there any discussion surrounding the recommendation to add the Social Choice Equity Fund to the Minnesota 529 plans?
Governor, this is Attorney General Keith Ellison.
You are recognized, Attorney General.
All I want to do is repeat what the Lieutenant Governor said early in the beginning of the meeting. I know for folks watching, they might say, well, why don't they have a bunch of questions and why isn't there a lot of discussion? Well, the truth is, we spend a lot of time reading the documents before the meeting. So I just want to let folks know that we're not just rubber stamping stuff. We've asked the tough questions, and we've, made it, and we've studied the documents. So I'll just yield back to the governor at this time.
Attorney General, I'm always grateful for you pointing this out. The Director Perry's team spends an inordinate amount of time, as does our General Counsel, Mr. Proxy, and others, to help us understand this. I would note that all of these are public documents and available for public review at any time, as always, because this is in the public's interest to do this. And so at this time, hearing nothing further, I would call for a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Auditor Blaha, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries and the recommendation has been approved. Director Perry, any further discussions on participant-directed program and non-retirement?
No, just you'll notice under tab M, just some information on what maybe happened in the quarter. But I would like to now have you turn to the report from the Proxy Committee, which appears under tab N. We have a Proxy Committee that has been charged since 1982 to carry out the SBI's voting responsibility of proxies. The current membership of that is made up of designees of each of the 4 members, and what we're asking today is that the board adopt a resolution which reauthorizes the proxy committee and delegates the proxy voting responsibilities according to established guidelines. We have to, by statute, have the committee reauthorized every 2 years. So we
Thank
would
you,
like.
Director. Is there any discussion regarding proxy voting?
Governor,
Hearing none,
Governor, this is BB Black. I was wondering if one of the members would please move to change the name. Since my transition, I go by BB.
Governor, we have members, we have made that change, and I think it appears in your revised copy that the designee for the Secretary of State's name is now corrected, BB Black.
Thank you very much.
yes, thank you, Mr. Black. Any further discussion? I would then call for a motion to adopt the resolution of the Minnesota State Board of Investments concerning proxy voting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Well, before we ask for a motion to adjourn, I would ask for any
Governor,
further discussion. And I would just note,
Governor,
yes, please go ahead, Director.
Yes, we have one more proxy voting motion, and that's to have the committee approve have the board approve the revised proxy voting guidelines, and the revisions appear in attachment B and C in the proxy committee report.
Is there any discussion regarding this this adjustment to the proxy voting? Hearing none, I'd call for a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
At this time, I'd call for a roll call vote. Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Again, before closing comments, thank you, Director Perry. Auditor Blaha, you are recognized.
Yes, I want to draw people's attention in our ESG report. I have to say, as the auditor, I couldn't let this section go without talking about it. If you take a look at the coalition highlight on the second page of the ESG report, we're, as many may know, we're a member of the United Nations backed Principles for Responsible Investment, and we'll be beginning some annual reporting. I think one of the most powerful tools we have as an investment group to help improve the world through investment is with increased data and increased transparency. And this is a really interesting step forward. Is on this. If you want to start changing behavior, one way you do is talk about it. And Governor, as you say so often, what gets measured gets done. And this is a step in that direction. So I hope people will take a moment and take a look at PRI's website, and we can continue to think about how we can use data to help, improve the world while we protect our retirees.
Thank you, Auditor. Important points. Any further discussion? Well, I'm going to note again, Director Perry, as I said, you and your team and the professionalism. And again, I think Secretary Simon made a great point. 1 quarter is something. And as we witnessed not too long ago, the hysteria around GameStop and other hedge funds and things like that, I want to note to Minnesotans, the professionals on here outperformed 99% of everybody who's trying to do this. And they did it as public servants. These are folks that in the private sector make millions of dollars for trading these without necessarily every time being concerned about the long-term effect of that. The long-term effect of the decision and the fiduciary responsibility of Director Perry's team and this board is to ensure the long-term fiscal health of the state of Minnesota and its retirees. And I think it should be noted in this time where people have great skepticism around some of the things that happen in financial markets and wonder what's happening. I, for one, am just grateful that we are advised and served by a team of professionals who put those interests forward and choose to serve the state of Minnesota. So as I said, Director Perry, your humbleness and professionalism, but I think the people of Minnesota need to know this story, because for those that find easy targets in public servants sometimes, I, for one, am telling you, we've got the best of the best serving the state. So thank you.
Thank you again, Governor.
I would now call for a motion to adjourn the meeting,
So moved.
and I'll call a roll call vote. Auditor Blaha, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the State Board of Investment is adjourned, and we'll say goodbye to Secretary of State Simon. I would now call the meeting of the Land Exchange Board to order. As the chair of the Land Exchange Board, I've determined that an in-person meeting is not practical due to the ongoing peacetime emergency and the COVID-19 pandemic declared under Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes. Under Minnesota's open meeting laws, we are able to hold this meeting in a virtual format with all votes being taken by a roll call vote. I would now call our first order of business, asking for a motion to approve the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Attorney General Ellison, how do you vote?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. Our first order of business is I would like to recognize U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Area Supervisor Tom Kerr and Deputy Realty Officer Bill Mulvaney to present two requests for approval. Mr. Kerr and Mulvaney, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Governor and members of the Land Exchange Board. For the record, I'm Tom Kerr with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and today we have two requests for your review. And if I can turn your attention to tab 2, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service requests authorization to purchase fee title for 148 acres of private land in Blueworth County under the authority of Section 4C of the Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp Act of March 16th as amended, and in compliance with the provisions of the Wetlands Loan Act of 1961 as amended. The Wetlands Loan Act of 1961 requires that no land shall be acquired with monies from the Migratory Bird Conservation Fund unless the acquisition has been approved by the governor of the state or the appropriate state agency. And in Minnesota, approval is granted by the Land Exchange Board. And this tract has been certified by the county board prior to the Land Exchange Board meeting. And I'm requesting your approval for that tract.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. Is there any discussion on this acquisition fee? Hearing none, I'd call for a motion to approve the request for certified acquisition fee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Attorney General Ellison, how do you vote?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. This request is approved. Mr. Kerr, you have a second acquisition?
Yes, I would ask that you turn your attention to tab 3. And in this request, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service requests authorization to purchase 13 acres of wetland easements and 1,342 acres of habitat easements on private property in Clearwater, Douglas, and Polk counties under the same authority as I just read for fee acquisition. And all of these tracts have also been approved, have been certified for acquisition by the respective county boards. And I'm requesting approval for these tracts.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. Is there any discussion concerning this easement? Hearing none, I call for a motion to approve the request for the certified easement acquisition.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you, Mr. Kerr. At this time, are there any final comments before I ask for a motion to adjourn? I'd now call for a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Land Exchange Board.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the Land Exchange Board is adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.